MetaFacts Legends, History Ranked, Episode 1 Top 10 Ideologies that Changed and Scarred Human History. Entry number 6 Modern Nationalism, the fire that built nations and burned empires. What if I told you that one idea could unite millions of strangers into a single cause? Inspire revolutions across continents, and yet be blamed for 2 world wars, genocides, and ongoing global instability. This is modern nationalism, not the ancient tribal kind, not imperial pride in a royal lineage, but the modern political movement that taught people to say, I am not just a person, I am a citizen, and this land, this flag, this is who I am. Welcome back to MetaFacts Legends, History Ranked. We're counting down the 10 ideologies that changed and scarred human history. And at number 6, we find nationalism, not because it's ancient, but because it's modern, dangerous, beautiful, conflicted, and far from finished. Let's begin where all powerful ideas start, not in war, but in poetry. Giuseppe Mazzini, born in 1805, didn't own an army, he didn't crown a king, but he did write, and what he wrote set fire to the Italian peninsula. Italy, at the time, wasn't Italy, it was a patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, and foreign occupations, especially from Austria and France. Mazzini believed that Italians, who shared language, customs, and history, should live under one flag. He founded Young Italy, a secret society dedicated to that dream. Without a country, Mazzini once wrote, "You are the bastards of humanity." That idea, that people who share a cultural identity deserve their own sovereign state, was radical in 1830. Today, it's almost common sense. Back then, monarchs called it sedition. Today, we call it self-determination. By 1861, after revolutions, battles, and the red-shirted campaign of Garibaldi, Italy became one nation, and then came the flood. Between 1800 and today, the number of sovereign countries on Earth exploded, from fewer than 50 to over 195. Most of that growth happened because of nationalism, but not all nationalism looked the same. Some came in the form of anti-colonial uprisings, others through romantic ideals, still others through fascist distortion, but we'll get to that. Let's head to India, under British rule. By 1858, the British Raj ruled over 300 million Indians. The British claimed they brought railroads, tea, and law, but they also brought famine, forced labor, and humiliation. Indians had no seat at the imperial table, but they had Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, born in 1869, trained as a lawyer, but became a philosopher of resistance. His tool was satyagraha, nonviolent resistance. He didn't just demand freedom, he demanded dignity, and unlike Mazzini, Gandhi's vision of the Indian nation included not just Hindus, but Muslims, Sikhs, and Christians. But nationalism, like fire, cannot be perfectly controlled. In 1947, India gained independence, but within hours, it was partitioned, violently, into Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. More than 15 million people were displaced. Over 1 million died. Some say nationalism gave India freedom. Others say it broke it into pieces. Let's travel to Vietnam. If Gandhi was the philosopher of peaceful nationalism, Ho Chí Minh was its guerrilla poet. Born in 1890, Ho traveled the world before returning to Vietnam with 2 ideas, Lenin's communism and Vietnam's right to be free. To the French, he was a terrorist. To the Americans, a communist. To the Vietnamese, Uncle Ho. In 1945, Ho declared independence, quoting the US Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. Then came 30 years of war against the French, ending in 1954 with the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. Against the Americans, ending in 1975 with the fall of Saigon. Against the Chinese, a brief but fierce border war in 1979. Vietnam lost millions of lives, but gained its national sovereignty. Nationalism, in this case, didn't just fight for an occupation, it fused with ideology to fuel endurance. Even today, Vietnam remains fiercely nationalistic, proudly independent, pragmatically communist, and economically open. And yet, nationalism isn't always revolutionary. Sometimes, it's restorative. Turkey, after World War I, was a defeated, fractured part of the Ottoman Empire. Enter Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, soldier, statesman, reformer. He abolished the Sultanate, secularized the state, and established a new Turkish identity. But at a cost. To build a Turkish nation, minorities were silenced or expelled. Over 1.5 million Armenians perished between 1915 to 1923. The population exchange with Greece displaced another 1.5 million people. Nation building, in many cases, meant identity erasure. And yet, nationalism doesn't stop at borders. In the Middle East, Pan-Arabism emerged in the 20th century, led by thinkers like Michel Aflaq and presidents like Gamal Abdel Nasser. It sought to unite all Arabic-speaking people under one nation. It led to revolutions in Egypt, Syria, Iraq, and Libya. But rivalries and Cold War interventions fractured the dream. Elsewhere, African nationalism surged after World War II. From Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah to Kenya's Jomo Kenyatta, leaders emerged with a single mission: throw off colonial rule. In 1957, Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence. By 1975, over 40 African nations had followed. But independence did not always bring unity. Orders drawn by colonial powers grouped ethnic enemies into fragile states. In Nigeria, Biafra attempted to secede. In Rwanda, ethnic identity exploded into genocide. In South Sudan, nationalism eventually led to secession and a civil war of its own. Let's talk numbers. According to the United Nations, in 1945, there were 51 UN member states. In 2023, there are 193. Over 70 new countries have emerged since the end of the Cold War alone. Nationalist movements remain active in Catalonia, Scotland, Kurdistan, Tibet, Kashmir, and dozens more. But not all nationalism is liberating. In recent decades, a new form has emerged: populist nationalism. It often mixes anti-globalization, anti-immigration, and identity politics. From Trump's America First to Brexit, from India's Hindu nationalism to Hungary's Warborn, the language of unity is often used to divide. So why does nationalism sit at number 6? Because it's neither good nor evil. It's a tool, a fire. It can light the torch of liberation or burn down the house of democracy. As George Orwell wrote, nationalism is power hunger tempered by self-deception. At MetaFacts Legends, we don't rank ideas based on popularity, we rank them based on impact. Which part of nationalism do you want us to explore further? Ho Chi Minh's letters, the story of Eritrea, the rise of ethnic nationalism in Europe? Let us know in the comments. You guide this journey, and if you want to dive deeper, we've linked foundational speeches, books, and biographies in the description, including affiliate links to support this project. Subscribe to MetaFacts Legends. Share if it made you think. Donate if you believe in the mission. This was entry number 6, Modern Nationalism, the fire that built nations and burned empires. Next on MetaFacts Legends, an ideology that marched without guns, spoke without hate, and yet shook the foundations of empires.